Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the Honda Transalp. This is a bike that I have really wanted to review for a long time because this bike speaks exactly to the types of riding that I like to do. So what I'm going to do in this video is try to show you a number of things that the other videos aren't showing you, and I can do that thanks to Riverview Honda giving me complete access to their entire lineup of vehicles. Now this is a 2024 model. I'm filming in January of 2025, so if you have questions about this vehicle or you want to know what's different for 2025, I'll be reviewing the 2025 on this channel as well, including almost all of its competitors. So we will be doing all that on here. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and like it. And actually, if you just want to help out the channel to grow, because the more this grows, the more access I can get to more things, just watch the video to the end. That's all I ask. Watch to the end. It really helps me out. All right, let's get going with this review. All right, so to prove that Riverside Honda is not, or Riverview Honda is not paying me for these and not that I'm not influenced by them, I'm going to talk about the Kawasaki Versys 650 that I used to own, and I loved it, and why I think this is the upgrade from that bike. I think it just makes more sense for a lot of people. Again, I love the Versys. The Versys is cheaper. It does come standard with luggage. This is a little more expensive, but you get a lot more in this bike. And for me, even though this is an adventure bike and the Versys is a sport touring bike, I think this is just as good of a sport tour and opens the door to off-road adventures. Now, how much off-road adventures is up for debate, because from the factory, you're gonna have to do a few Honda accessories or aftermarket accessories to really equip it for some of your off-road adventures. But I think for a guy like me, it's not far away from being pretty much perfect. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start at the front wheel. We're gonna work our way through all the pieces of this bike, talk about what's unique, and then we're gonna work our way over to the instrument cluster, show you that, and we're gonna talk about who this bike is for and who it's not for, and how you can tweak it even with just Honda accessories from the dealer to make it a more versatile bike or more better for you, if that makes sense. More better? All right, let's get going with the front wheel. So starting off with the front wheel, you can really tell the manufacturer's intent by looking at the front wheel of any motorcycle. So what we have here is something that is not set up as a sport tour with a 17-inch front wheel, but it's set up as an adventure bike. So this is a proper 21-inch front wheel. A lot of bikes are gonna go 19-inch and call it an adventure bike, but you got a proper 21-inch front and 18-inch rear. Now the tires on this are going to be a source of contention for those who really love going fully off-road. These are called the Dunlop Trail Max Mix Tour, and I think that's a perfect name for them. This is sort of a mixed tire, more touring than pure off-road. But if you're someone like me who doesn't want to take a huge adventure bike, and this is not a huge adventure bike, but if you don't want to go too far off-road, you just want to be able to go down those rough roads, those gravel roads, maybe the odd, properly done trail, these tires are going to suit a lot of people just fine, and they're going to be just fine for the road. Now, the difference with a 21-inch front tire or front wheel instead of a 17-inch front wheel can change the sort of directness of the handling, but I still think this thing handles just fine on the country roads and city streets that you're going to be taking this on. If you were to take it to a track, you might notice that the flickability at a track level isn't where a 17-inch front wheel is, but I don't think a lot of people are taking a Versys 650 or this bike or anything in this class of adventure bike onto the track. I don't think it's going to make enough of a difference. These tires are going to be just great for those back and forth country roads and the types of things that you're going to do in this. Now, what I like about this is you can see not just the sizing of the tire, they actually put spoked wheels in this. There are some Honda bikes in the adventure class that have the alloy wheels, which is really not what you want if you're going to be considering true off-road. So you've got the spoked wheels, that's a stronger wheel set, and then you've got the nice large fender here. Now, this is mounted closer to the wheels, so that is something that you're going to have to keep in mind for the mud accumulation. A lot of true dirt bikes are higher, but again, this is a bit of a mixed bike. It's a more of a dual, or more of a touring bike and an adventure bike than it is a dual sport bike. But you've got a large fender to protect everything. One thing that's pretty cool is your brakes are very large here, 310 millimeter. A lot of bikes have 300 millimeters, so it's a little bit larger brake caliper. And they add some flair with the gold or bronze type color in here, which I'm not sure if you can see on camera, but it's really easy to see in person. So a lot of things I really like here. We just got a car coming out here. Yep, he's gonna have room. All right, so a lot of things I really like here for adventure, but if you're a sport touring type of rider and you're staying on the roads, this is gonna be just fine as a sport tour as well. And that's what I really like about the Transalp. So normally when I talk about the heart of the bike, the engine, I film straight on from the side, but let's just show you a couple things here which are good and maybe not so good. A little bit hard to see, maybe, yeah, you can see it here. There is a grate here, comes standard on the radiator. That's something that I had to I think you should add to every bike you have just in case a stone chip. If you think about a stone chip that can break a windshield, you don't want that coming through. And if you're going down gravel roads, you're gonna come in more contact with stones, so you've already got equipped for sort of a gravel road ride. Now, what I don't like as much is down here, and it's very easily fixable. You can see you've got your oil filter right there. That's totally fine if you have a guard underneath. Now, this bike doesn't come standard with a guard. It does have a Honda accessory. Of course, there's aftermarket stuff as well. If you're gonna be going off the road, I really recommend that you get that guard, because this is sort of set up as a road bike in that section. Now, a guard's gonna do all the work for you if you, as far as turning this into an adventure bike. So really, if you're gonna go full on adventure, that's what I would include. But we also have an engine here worth talking about. So let's go properly around the side and talk about that. The engine is absolutely the sweet spot here. So you've got a parallel twin engine, which traditionally can have a lack of character, and traditionally from Honda, same sort of thing. We know Hondas are going to be incredibly reliable, but they're not known for giving their bikes a lot of character. But that's changed with this engine. Take it from the Honda Hornet, the CB750. What you have here is something that's a 270-degree crank, which right away gives it some more character, but it's also got a unique intake system. So when it takes the air in, it's actually a patented system that's more like a ram air type system. It's going to build power in this, so you get great power output, but you also have good high-end power and good mid-range power compared to a lot of its competitors. A lot of the competitors have to choose. Do you want low-end power, mid-range power, or high-end or up-top power? And this thing's got mid to high power exactly like you want. So that high-end power gives you that sport bike type feel. That mid-range is going to be exactly what you need for all your touring, which is where most people are going to appreciate this, but it's got character while doing it. People love the engine of this, and it's designed in and baked in. That's not something you traditionally get from a lot of Hondas that you're now seeing on this bike. So far more character, which makes it fun, but also the capability from PowerPoint, right from mid-range right up to the top end of the power band. The other thing worth mentioning on this bike is the frame, subframe, everything else. Now, Honda has a piece on their website where they talk about how this frame design and everything they put into it, they've focused on reducing weight. And they talk about reducing or eliminating 40 point some odd pounds of weight. Now, I don't know what that 40 pounds is reduced from, but I will tell you that this is a 459-pound bike, which is very competitive in this space. Something like the V-Strom is a lot closer to 500 pounds. So you have an advantage here, the V-Strom 800, which would be the similar model. So you have an advantage here in weight. That's going to make it feel lively. And I also think the positioning of the weight really helps in this bike. It's relatively down low. Now, you do have a little smaller fuel tank, 16.6 liter fuel tank. That's not going to hurt range because it's got an engine that gives you great fuel mileage, but it is a little smaller than some of the other adventure bikes, and that's going to contribute to a lower wet weight as well. So you've got a couple things here that keep it kind of sport bike type friendly, but absolutely adventure bike when it comes to everything else. So let's talk about what you've got here. We talked about that 21-inch front tire. You've got an 18-inch rear tire there as well, and you've got pretty good suspension travel on this bike. You've got around, if I can find it exactly here, 7 inches in the front and over 7 inches in the back. So you've got pretty good suspension travel. Again, moving it away from that sport bike, sport touring category, and certainly adventure capable. The other thing we should talk about is electronics. We're going to get to that in a second. A lot of the electronics on a modern bike really determine how good it is on and off road, but first we have to talk about some practicality. So practicality of a bike, of course, you think about luggage, but let's start with practicality for me, which is just sitting on the bike. How does it feel? Is it something that I can take anywhere? Well, first of all, for an adventure bike, it is very well laid out. I can almost flat foot, not quite, as a 6-footer. So I'm about a 6-footer, proportional 6-footer, and the seating position on this bike is very, very good. I'm in a nice square seating position. You've got a little bit of wind protection, but not feeling like a massively huge bike down there. Up front here, you do not have an adjustable windshield, but you do have a windshield. Once you have a proper windshield mount, you can always hit the aftermarket if it doesn't fit exactly your height. From what I can tell, I think it's going to be pretty good from everything I've read. I have not driven this bike yet, so I haven't taken it out in the wind. Right now, there's a huge snowstorm in town, so we're not doing that today. But I will say seating position is very good. It's not too wide, it's not too narrow, you've got good control, pretty good standing position from what I can tell on this bike as well, and definitely something I could ride all day with comfort. So you've got a fun engine, you've got some ride modes we're going to talk about in a second, you've got a comfortable seating position, and right away that means that you can take this in place of a car, in place of other things. You're going to able to go on short trips around town because you've got a commanding view of the road. Longer trips, you've got a comfortable seating position, and we can talk about those electronics and how they add to a better riding experience as well in all conditions. Now let's look first at some practicality back here. So take a look at the rear seat of this bike. You can see you've got enough space for a passenger here. It's a nicely cushioned seat, so it's firm, but it's appropriately firm. Sometimes firm seats can be painful after a while. Sometimes firm seats are what's necessary to make it really comfortable. So you've got that, and it's very flat on the back here. For an adventure bike, that seat serves two purposes. One purpose is to obviously take a passenger. The second purpose is to have a nice area where you can put some cargo. So if you just want to strap on a duffel bag or something like that, you've got these large pins here. We used to do these in sort of like a metal with a little knob at the end, but you've got these large aluminum, this is aluminum frame here, large pins there. So if you just want to buy the bike and go adventuring with a duffel bag that you already own, you can strap that down. You've got lots of space to do that. But of course, you've got the mounts here to mount everything you need. You've got tie down areas back here, back there. So if you're just going to take a little bungee net under your seat and go grocery shopping, grab what you need kind of thing, do your run around and strap to the back, not a problem. But Honda offers you accessories as well. You can put side bags on this bike. You can put a top box on the bike. If you do put a top box on the bike, you can put a backrest on this bike. And although this is probably going to be more fun with just a single person, the 755cc engine offers you enough power that you could do short tours with another person as well. It's not something that I would choose as a primary bike for two-up touring, but certainly a weekend adventure, not a problem. But to me, I'm looking at this as a single rider. It's everything you need, including great fuel efficiency and everything you need to go touring on any road. So let's continue now with some of the electronics on this bike, which really open it up. Before we go too far, I should point out one little thing. You can really see the scoop out in the seat here. A lot of adventure bikes that are a little bit less scooped out. This scoop out is what makes it feel so approachable and so comfortable. You can see as a 6-footer when I was sitting on this that my legs were at an appropriate angle, but I could still reach the ground, and it's the scoop out of the seat. There is a low seat height option as well on this bike, so you can swap out that seat with a low seat height and be even more comfortable. And there is also a good height and rise to the top of the windshield there to keep you well protected. All right, let's take a look at the dash. All right, so we're well zoomed into the dash here. I'm going to show you the handlebar in a second here, just because the key is attached to the handlebar and it does move. The dash here comes up. You can see a little bit of glare on the top right corner of the lights in this room, but pretty good stuff. So I like a lot about this dash. The only thing I'm not super thrilled about is one thing that doesn't show up on camera is the tachometer is relatively small for a motorcycle. Now the round gauge is perfect because you can tell at a glance what you're doing. I don't think it matters so much on this bike. I don't think you're constantly running it right to redline and you need to know exactly where that 10,000 RPM redline is. But at the end of the day, a little larger tack would be nicer, but that's really nitpicking because everything else here is actually very well done. It's clear, it's easy to read, your speed is front and center, you've got your fuel gauge there, gear position indicator on the right side there. You do have a quick shifter on this bike. That comes standard. This bike has no options whatsoever, so if you've seen it on this bike, it is standard in Canada. We're going to show you lights in a second here. I can point out though that you do have marker lights on either side open. But let's take a look at the dash. We're just going to go through the very basics. First of all, you've got ride modes here. So you can see it's in the gravel mode and you've got all of the parameters there. So your ABS is half off essentially and you can sort of see what goes on. So that allows you to sort of set up that gravel mode to allow you to have some slip of the rear wheel in braking and accelerating. Now this bike has things like wheelie control, traction control, all those kind of things. And wheelie control is not something you normally see on a adventure bike, but this bike's got it because again it has that sporty, playful kind of character. So you do have warning lights on the outside here for traction and other stuff, ABS, but you also have a side stand warning and a number of warnings in the dash, like above the gravel there you have the low fuel warning light. So let's switch through the modes here for a second. You've got the gravel, you've got a user mode, so this is where you can customize all of your various parameters. If you want a full tour of the dash, we'll do that in a later video, but I want to give you at least the overview here. And then of course you've got sport mode, very common, standard mode, and rain mode. A lot of people are going to drive in standard mode, but you can dial up the sport with this. Rain, of course, just dials it down, keeps your ABS on full, traction control on full, all those kinds of things. And then the gravel mode, again, you've got that mode to allow the rear wheel to slip a little bit, both in acceleration and in braking. So you can steer with the rear wheel either way you want, acceleration and braking. Down below here, you've got a number of things. So first of all, you've got number 1 right there. So we've got screen number 1, screen number 2, screen number 3, screen number 4. So you've got all sorts of things. There's a lot of information constantly visible on this dash. Now, sometimes that can be a problem because it gets too busy, but I think Honda manages it very, very well. You've got things like instant fuel efficiency, average consumption, and they're both always visible. What that means is you're not playing with dash controls constantly to look at what you need to look at. You can glance down, get the information, you're not dialing through, and that means you're going to spend more time paying attention to the road. Now, let's show you how the controls work on this bike because they are a little different than some other bikes, and it's worth mentioning. All right, so we are clutch side here. Clutch side, you have a slipper and assist clutch. What that means is two things. One, if I dump that clutch at high RPMs and I'm slowing down, instead of locking the wheel, it's gonna do everything it can to avoid locking that wheel on an aggressive downshift, and it's gonna allow the clutch to slip instead to keep your wheel from slipping, which is gonna keep you in control. These types of features, including just things like ABS, they're more important on an adventure bike where you might be coming off a slippery, muddy road onto a paved road, and if you've got mud on the tires, something like that, you can have extra slippage. So that slipper and assist clutch really is a performance benefit. It's a beginner bike benefit, but it's also something that works great on adventure bikes and has a side benefit of making a lighter clutch pull. So you have a nice easy clutch pull here. Not as light as the CRF 300L Rally that we did just the other day, but certainly something that's manageable. Now, a couple things that are different here. A lot of bikes have a trigger, including some Hondas have a trigger to flash to pass. This one still has a trigger, but it's on top, but it also turns your high beams on there. So you're locking your high beams on like that, and you're triggering them on and off like that. So you just want to flash it, you go like that, keep it on, you go like that. Nothing wrong with that, and it just clears up space for some of your mode here. Mode, this is your ride mode. Simple, simple, simple. You're gonna hit it, no problem. Now probably you're gonna, if you're coming from a bike with a horn, you may get in the habit of hitting the wrong one here, but of course, 100 kilometers, 60 miles of riding, you're gonna figure out which one that is. So ride mode there, very easy to change. Then you've got your function menu. This goes side to side, up and down. And like I said, if you want to see a video of the dash in this thing, just to sort of focus on that, let me know in the comments below. We'll come back to that and do another video. Signals down here, hazard lights over there. I really think most bikes should come with hazard lights, especially an adventure bike where you may be stopping and adventuring around. This bike has that. Now let's zoom out for a second here. We're going to try to get you into what I'm trying to show you. There we go. If we zoom into the dash right here, you can see there is sort of a dummy switch there. You can put a 12-volt USB type port in there. So that's going to allow you to set up on the handlebars if you want a GPS. I would put it on the handlebars. I think even though your key is kind of behind there, the key does move with the handlebars there. But I think I would put a GPS here because it's going to keep it a little closer to you and give you a really bigger screen view. But you can also, of course, get accessories to mount it behind the windshield. A lot of people like that clean look, and I have no problems with doing that. And actually, when I think about it, maybe I don't want it on my steering wheel when I can put it up there. So you've got options is what I'm getting at. Lots of options for navigation. I should point out the far side there is a single switch for start and kill switch as well. So again, more modern design than some other bikes with a dual switch, but works perfectly fine. Moving to the front of the bike, you have got the LED light there. We're gonna just sort of flash the high beam there. Not a whole lot to show you here, but I do wanna show you that you have the marker lights here. I really appreciate bikes that have the marker lights that are lit. I think that just gives you a little bit more width, especially at night. Obviously, there's room to add accessory lights if that's what you wanted to do, but a pretty clean look as we go down the bike here. Not a lot of extra space for mud to get stuck. I think it's gonna be pretty easy to clean. The radiator and the guards comes right out to the bodywork, which is just little things that make a difference to me, both for aerodynamics, I'm sure that helps, but also just easy to clean if you're going to get this bike out and get it dirty, which to me, even if you don't go on the mud, it's something that you can take out on a, every day, no matter what the weather, and it can become your everyday vehicle. So let's talk about where Honda hit and where they missed on this bike. I think it's mostly a hit, but a couple things people point out that I think are valid. Something like the V-Strom 800, it does have adjustable suspension. This one does not, so that's just worth keeping in mind. Most people are saying that this is tuned just fine for a lot of people, and to me, if it's tuned fine, I don't need adjustable suspension. It's just always nice to have. So it doesn't have that, and basically in the class, I think other than the KTM 790, in this class, a lot of bikes have the electronic throttle, which means it would be very easy to add cruise control, but almost none of the bikes have cruise control. So basically nothing in the class has cruise control, but it is an available accessory through the aftermarket. Big Rock Moto's YouTube channel has some information on that. I think he put one on there, so you can check that channel out as well. So it's something you could put on at the aftermarket. Where else did Honda miss? I think they missed by they should put that guard on the bottom just to make it a standard accessory. It's not really a miss to me. You just have to look at this bike, look at the MSRP, add on the price of the rock guard there, or the underbelly protection there, and that's the price of this bike for you. Like if they put it on, they'd raise the price anyways, so I think that's fine. It is a very good price bike. To me, what it does really well is it steps up from that 650 or so class of the V-Strom 650, of the Versa 650, and gives you a little better highway legs, a lot more playfulness, and it basically gives you the same kind of comfort. So you end up taking V-Strom, which is not super exciting at the 650, but reliable. Now you're moving into something like this, which gets you a lot more exciting. And compared to the Versa 650, again, you step up a little bit. You're getting things like a quick shifter standard, ride mode standard. You're getting wheelie control. You're getting all of these things that that bike doesn't have in place of its luggage, but you could add the luggage on this bike as well. This thing is fun to ride, super versatile, and you're going to use it all day long. What I would do is throw some side bags on. Don't know about a top box. I sometimes like to just throw a soft bag up there, but if you throw side bags on, you can get lockable hard ones. You can put soft bags on. There's tons of options with this bike, and it's set up from the factory to just work for you. So I don't think they missed on much. Like I said, hitting a price point with not giving me adjustable suspension, but giving me more power than most of the competition, not giving cruise control, but virtually nobody in the line does. If those are your only two misses, then it's pretty good. Now, some people say, hey, the tires are misses. I don't think they are. I think for the average rider that's not YouTube reviewing all the time and can't go off-road nearly as much as some of those guys who are YouTube reviewing, I think these tires are going to be just fine, because this, to me, is primarily a street bike from the factory that allows you to go on those gravel roads, dirt roads, those kind of things. And I think, if we're honest with ourselves, that's where most people are going to ride it. We have dreams of doing adventures of crazy off-road stuff, but buy the CRF Rally for that. This thing's going to be primarily on-road, gravel road, easier trails. And for that, it's already set up. Now, if you're someone who wants to advance to harder trails, you're not selling this bike. You can just accessorize it up and take it with crash guards and everything else. A couple other things worth noting: you can get heated grips for this. You can get hand covers from, I don't know if you can get Honda ones, but you can get the aftermarket. So you can really equip this for cool weather as well, which is really nice. I love the quick shifter. I love the dash for the most part as far as everything else. The engine's great, comfort is great. It is really hard not to fault this bike, especially for the price point. When you start looking at adventure bikes, when you start moving into that class, you can get expensive very quickly. And I think for most riders, this is going to be more than they ever need, and it's going to be all the fun you need. So that's my take on the Transalp. I will be spending more time with this bike. I want to spend more time with this bike. If Honda wants to help me get on it and ride it sometime, definitely want to do that as well. Like I said, right now, snowstorm, not happening. But if you're interested in seeing this bike, it is sitting here in January in a snowstorm at Riverview Honda. Make sure you check it out. The link for their dealership is in the description. Check them out. Want to give them some likes and thanks. And again, if you stayed on and watched this whole thing, I really appreciate it. Again, if you made it this far and you haven't hit the like button, maybe do that. But also feel free to subscribe. We're going to have a whole lot more content on this channel. All kinds of brands, everything, all of its competitors. And yeah, we're going to keep coming. We got a lot more Honda to go through right now. We just picked up Honda on this channel, so plenty to review. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.